Extraordinary new tariffs on America's largest trading partners. After threatening tariffs for months, President Donald Trump announced new taxes on goods coming from Canada, China, and Mexico.
The tariffs on Canada and China are set to go into effect at midnight Eastern Time, with Mexican tariffs now paused until a month from now. The president has justified the move, citing a national emergency regarding the flow of fentanyl and undocumented immigrants into the United States.
Still, the president acknowledges Americans may find themselves paying the costs. Michael Yoshida is live in Washington with what this means for your wallet. Good afternoon, Michael.
Hey, good afternoon, Alex and Courtney. In the lead up to and right after the presidential election, many thought President Trump's talk of tariffs was a bluff or some sort of negotiating strategy, but now it appears some of those tariffs are arriving in full force, with research released today showing the typical U.S. household could see the impact of those Canadian and China tariffs to the tune of some $600 a year.
President Trump targeting America's largest trading partners.
The United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world.
A massive 25% tariff on most imports from Canada, and a 10% tariff on Chinese goods is expected to go into effect Tuesday. A 25% tariff on all goods from Mexico could go into effect in March, pending negotiations.
That is going to be an additional 25% that you are going to need to pay at the pump or at the grocery store.
Tariffs basically work like this. Goods produced outside the U.S. face a tax or tariff when imported. Companies pay that cost, which is then often passed on to the consumer.
We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that.
That includes energy and auto industries.
Parts move back and forth across our borders here in Michigan and Ontario every day, and eventually that shows up in the consumer price in the showroom.
Food and service businesses likely to feel the pinch too.
Not only with those great Americans that make distilled spirits products, but the agriculture community, bars, restaurants, bartenders.
Trump argues tariffs will make America wealthier and address trade deficits. Still, the interconnected web of global trade and fears of subsequent trade wars raise questions.
When we talk about tariffs, they're usually used to protect domestic industries or bring back manufacturing, in this case, back to U.S. soil. However, it's very unlikely we're going to be able to produce every single one of those on our soil.
And countries targeted by these tariffs have already announced their own retaliatory measures, which economists worry will just lead to a greater trade war. Whether a deal can be reached between President Trump and the leaders of all of these countries, that remains to be seen. Alex, Courtney.
And Michael, what goods and industries are most likely to be impacted from each country?
For sure. So when you look at these tariffs and the impact for consumers here in the United States, really speaks to just how interconnected the supply chains and these industries, particularly here in North America, are. Take a look. Here's a list at some of those common goods that could be impacted. When we look at goods from Mexico, we're talking fruits, vegetables, cars and cars parts, alcoholic beverages. Heading to the northern border with Canada, grain, livestock, meat, sugars, oil, and gas. That's particularly important this winter when you think of heating oil, particularly for the Northeast. Also lumber and Chinese goods, electronics, home appliances, toys, and footwear. Now, I mentioned some of these countries already implementing their own countermeasures. That'll be interesting to watch to see if the Trump administration issues any further tariffs. Another date to keep in mind as well, February 18th. That's a date that President Trump has previously talked about issuing more tariffs. So again, something to watch as this all plays out in the month ahead.
Interesting times indeed, Michael. We thank you for that update.